going on, guys? I am Aggressively American, and I'm here to shed light on all the ways you're being manipulated, one video at a time. Boy, is there manipulation going on right now. We are going in about 2 days after the clash between Zelensky, Vance, and Trump at the White House. I think the world has had a lot of time to digest what happened there, and I kind of wanted to share some thoughts on it. I think the first thing to keep in mind is that Zelensky was, in fact, supposed to be showing up to the White House with a realistic plan for peace, and he did not do that. He came there instead asking for more money, asking to keep this war going. And the second thing was he was supposed to show up and be prepared to sign the rare earths minerals deal that Trump had proposed, essentially to allow the U.S. to recoup some of the hundreds of billions of dollars that Ukraine has been sent by us, and he wasn't prepared to do that either. So those were the two things that were kind of looming over their heads as they went into that meeting, and can hopefully help shed some light on why things were so tense in there and kind of what happened. But we're going to rewatch some of it in a little bit here. But first and foremost, I wanted to address, a lot of people are saying, well, Zelensky has made plans for peace before, and that is true, but all of them have been laughed off the world stage as unrealistic. So I wanted to take a moment to dive into his most recent one. He actually posted it on X at the end of last year, or near the end of last year, rather. It was a 5-point plan. So let's take a look at what that looked like. This is an article from something called the Cato Institute. Some of you might be familiar with it, others not, neither here nor there. But here were the 5 points that Zelensky tweeted out, points that the Cato Institute classifies as another fantasy. Zelensky's new peace plan is another fantasy. Note the use of the word another, meaning that his previous peace plan also was a fantasy. But why do they feel that way? Well, let's look. First and foremost, the first point on Zelensky's offer of peace is that in order for him to sign it, Ukraine will need an unconditional invitation to join NATO. That's a weird point to put on a peace plan. Why? Because according to NATO, NATO has an open door policy for members to join. In fact, they say any European country in a position to further the principles of the Washington Treaty and contribute to security in the Euro-Atlantic area can become a member of the alliance at the invitation of the North Atlantic Council. So why hasn't Ukraine been able to get in? Why would that be something that they'd have to put onto a peace treaty? Well, by NATO's own account, the feeling was, and this is a quote, the feeling was, and probably still has been, that Ukraine hadn't completely taken care of political corruption and it was still developing its democracy. So this country that's ruled by a man who's a year over the term he was elected to serve, this country that has its entire country under martial law, this country that has been getting hundreds of billions of dollars sent to it that are not being tracked, hundreds of billions of dollars of weapons getting sent to it that's not being tracked, this country that the leader has stopped all new elections from taking place, is unable to join NATO. NATO will not accept it in its membership because it's too corrupt. So keep that in mind. That is a very important point, especially lately because, the Western media likes to paint Zelensky like he's some kind of Ukrainian Churchill, when the truth is there is an awful lot of corruption happening in Ukraine. And in fact, many, many scholars deem it one of the most corrupt countries on the planet. So that is why he has point 1 in the treaty. You guys need to let us become a member of NATO because you've never let us do it before. Point 2, fulfilling in its entirety of Ukraine's shopping list for Western weapons. What does that mean? That means that Ukraine has a shopping list. They literally have like a Santa Claus list of here are all the weapons we feel that Western nations, particularly the United States, should be giving to Ukraine. If you want us to sign a peace deal, you have to give them everything, or give us everything we want in full. That's absurd. It's ridiculous. What ground do they have to stand on to make such an aggressive claim is my question. How they have none. They don't have any ground to stand on to make such an aggressive complaint. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they're acting as if they're not still alive because we've already given them all these weapons, that they're not still alive because we've already given them so much money. They're acting like they're a country that has supported itself, and they just are playing this negotiating tactic that doesn't exist. Point number 3, a classified demand for deference of Russia to include a comprehensive non-nuclear strategic deference package that will be sufficient to protect Ukraine from any military threat from Russia. So, this is interesting because point 2 already says that they have a list of military weaponry that they want fulfilled, and in order for them to sign a peace treaty, they need them fulfilled. So why would they make a second redundant claim that they need a classified list? Well, let's think about that. The first list is not classified. Why would he need to have a classified list? Why would he want to have a non-public list that also needs to be fulfilled? If we look at this article here from the Sunday Times, they kind of delve into what some of this can mean. Quote, Zelensky wants the package to be sufficient to protect his country against any military threat. Ukraine proposes to deploy on its land a comprehensive non-nuclear strategic deterrence package that will be sufficient to protect Ukraine from any military threat from Russia and will narrow Russia's options to the following prospects: either join an honest diplomatic process for a just end to the war, or be guaranteed to miss the opportunity to continue an aggressive war as a result of Ukraine using the provided deterrence package in accordance with certain military objectives. That is, the containment package is a fact that Russia either goes into diplomacy or leaves to the loss of its war machine, peace through force. So they're not just saying, you guys need to give us all the weapons we want. They're saying, you need to give us a whole bunch of secret military deterrence that has the might to stand up to the Russian army to such a degree that if they set foot on Ukrainian soil, they will be wiped out. Again, this is a demand coming from a country that only still exists because of the generosity of Western nations. This isn't them asking. This is them saying, we will not sign a peace treaty unless this is on it. And I think it's astonishing. I think it's astonishing that they have the, just to be honest, the balls to make such a demand. Point number 4, the protection of Ukrainians' critical resources, to include a U.S.-EU signed special agreement for the joint protection of same. What is that? Well, it's kind of interesting. It goes back to that rare earth mineral deal that Trump wanted Ukraine to sign. Ukraine has a ton of resources on its land. It has a lot of things that are extremely valuable. In contrary to signing a deal that allows money from those things to come back to the U.S., Ukraine is saying, no, you need to agree that no money from that will come to the U.S., that all that stuff is going to stay ours, that we're not going to lose any of it. So not only are they asking for money from other nations, but they're sitting on their stockpile of highly valuable rare earth minerals. It's like somebody asking to borrow money from you and you find out that they have a stash of Rolex watches. So you say, why don't you sell one of the Rolexes? And they say, no, those Rolexes are staying with me. And you say, well, okay, fine, I'll give you the money, but you need to give me a Rolex so I can sell it. And they say, no, you're just going to give me the money and I'm not going to pay it back. And I won't agree to peace until you do. And then we get to point number 5. After the war, the replacement of certain U.S. military contingents stationed in Europe with Ukrainian units, aka U.S., in order for us to sign a peace treaty, you have to agree to send troops over here and keep them stationed on our land. So again, this is the 5-point deal that Ukraine put out, that they said they would not sign any peace agreements unless these 5 points were fulfilled. So contrary to coming with something realistic, because the U.S. read these and said, absolutely not, you need to bring something realistic, Ukraine instead came to the White House and said, nope, It's this. We just want more money if not. And that's what led into this.
Hey, I want to respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
So, again, this is Vance literally stepping in now. With all the things I just told you, this is him responding to it, saying, the time for diplomacy is now. Cut the BS, cut the hardlining, quit acting like you have some grand ground to stand on. You can make all these demands and they have to be met, or else now is the time to be diplomatic. Now is the time to negotiate with Russia. Now is the time to put an end to the war with a realistic peace agreement. And in response to that, this man, this Ukrainian Churchill, says this.
Ask you.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at it. Look.
So,
I just want to point this out. This is going unmissed by a lot of people. Zelensky is the one that instigated the quarrel at the White House. He absolutely did. And he did it with this, not only his attitude, you can look at his face like this passive-aggressive BS, but he did it with this statement. But just watch his face. Watch how he acts. Think about the 5 points that he's demanding. Think about the balls on this guy. Think about how unrealistic he is acting as the U.S. says, hey, we're the ones keeping you guys alive. We want you to negotiate peace. And he says this.
yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at the attitude.
So, he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, parts of East and
Yeah, it's a war. It
Crimea.
sucks.
So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now the President
The
Trump,
guy's literally
and God
proving
bless,
their point
now
for
President
him.
Trump.
He's saying that when Obama and Biden were president, that Russia wasn't abiding to the deals, that, you know, there was no peace, that things weren't going the way they were supposed to. And it just further proves the point that those administrations wanted this war to continue because it was allowing them to get a hold of hundreds of billions of dollars and do what they wanted to do with it unmonitored.
Will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2015.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was,
he killed.
I was not here.
Yeah, but
That's exactly
but-
right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, yeah, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody
That's
stopped
right.
him.
People have
you
been
know
dying.
That we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him. Me, like a new president, in 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel. We signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed with him with gas contract. Gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire.
He broke it
killed
because
our people,
Biden was
and
president.
he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about?
So this is what is so important about what just happened here. This is Zelensky in front of the world on camera admitting diplomacy is not an option. The only option is for Ukraine to continue the war by way of the United States continuing to give us hundreds of billions of dollars in weapons and hundreds of billions of dollars in cash. That is what's happening here. And there's so much corruption behind it, guys. There is so much corruption about it. He talks about that things weren't going as they should under Obama and under Biden. You guys remember that clip with Biden, right? Where he came out on camera and he said, hey, There is a prosecutor investigating my son. And I told Ukraine, you guys aren't getting the aid from us until that guy is fired.
I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, what, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Is that not corruption? There's so much going on here. It's just a giant money laundering scheme. And Zelensky knows, even with the comment he made about the suit where he's talking to the guy's like, hey, why don't you wear a nicer suit? And he's like, hey, when all this is done, maybe I'll wear something like yours. Maybe I'll wear something nicer. The dude's lining his pockets. Again, this country can't join NATO because of how corrupt it is. We need to snap out of it. We absolutely need to snap out of it. People who think that Ukraine can beat Russia are delusional. They are straight up delusional. Ukraine needs to negotiate. Trump and Vance want to push this forward. And to be perfectly honest with you guys, if Ukraine really could beat Russia, then Russia is not a threat to the U.S. Then that argument is out the window. Then everybody's saying that this has to be done because Russia's the U.S. greatest threat, blah, blah, blah. If Ukraine can beat them, especially without our support, then we don't need to worry about Russia. But if they can't beat them, which is the case, then we need to negotiate. Thanks for checking the video, guys. Like and subscribe. I'm getting the channel going. I'll see you next time.